When Zeno of Cyprus was shipwrecked and stranded on Athens, he wasn't expecting any good to happen. Having lost everything, and with not much else to do, Zeno wandered into a bookshop and was quickly absorbed by the teachings of Socrates. After studying with the great philosophers of his time, he decided to impart his wisdom to anyone who'd care to listen. Thus, the philosophy of Stoicism was born. Zeno's teachings would quickly spread and would be adopted by both slaves and kings alike. As he would later joke, "I made a prosperous voyage when I suffered shipwreck." But that's not where the story of Stoicism ends. Centuries later, the philosophy remains as relevant, if not more so, in modern society. These Stoic practices will help bring calm to the chaos we face today. Number 1, develop an internal locus of control. Man is disturbed not by things, but by the views he takes of them. Much of what happens in life is not within our control. The Stoics recognized this undeniable truth, and they focused instead on what they could control. Born a slave, it would seem that Epictetus had no reason to believe he could control anything. He was permanently crippled from a broken leg given to him by his master. Epictetus would live and die in poverty. But that wasn't what Epictetus thought. He would say that even while his property, and even his body, was not within his control, his opinions, desires, and aversions still remained his. That was something that he owned. It's easy to get frustrated today. We're so used to comfort that even the slightest inconvenience provokes outrage. If the internet takes a second longer than it should, or if traffic stalls for a minute, the natural instinct seems to be annoyance, if not rage. And it isn't any of these breakdowns that are making us unhappy either. The unhappiness stems from the emotional response that we've chosen. The onus is on ourselves to ensure that we don't let external events affect our internal state of mind. Once we internalize that, it becomes clear that we have the power to be happy, regardless of our circumstances. 2. Guard your time. We're tight-fisted with property and money, yet think too little of wasting time, the one thing about which we should all be the toughest misers. The Stoics understood that time is our greatest asset. Unlike any of our material possessions, once lost, time can never be regained. We must therefore strive to waste as little of it as possible. Those who squander this scarce resource on minutiae or entertainment will find that they have nothing to show for it in the end. The habit of procrastination and putting things off will come back to haunt us, because tomorrow isn't guaranteed. On the other hand, those who give away their time freely to others will also find that they're no better off than those who waste it. Most of us allow people and other obligations to impose on our time too easily. We make commitments without giving deep thought to what it entails. Calendars and schedules were meant to help us. We should never become a slave to them. Regardless of which end of the spectrum we fall into, time is of the essence. We think we have a lot of time, but really, we don't. 3. Don't outsource your happiness. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinions of himself than on the opinions of others. Much of what we do stems from our primal need to be liked and accepted by others. Disapproval from our social group had serious repercussions in the past. It would have likely meant exile and eventually death in the wilderness. That's still true to some extent today. But how much time and effort do we spend trying to win the approval of others? And at what cost? We spend money we don't have to buy fancy things we don't need in order to impress someone we don't care about. Our choice of career or lifestyle is centered around how others perceive us, rather than what is best for us. We are held hostage and pay a king's ransom every day, with no guarantee that we'll ever be free. In contrast, the Roman statesman Cato sought to lead a life that was independent of the opinion of others. He'd wear the most outlandish of outfits and walk in the streets without putting on shoes. It was his way of accustoming himself to be ashamed of what only deserves shame and to despise all other sorts of disgrace. That was the only way in which he could stand up to Julius Caesar, whom he recognized as consolidating too much power. It enabled him to make the big decisions when it counted, without the fear of disapproval. We have much to learn from him. Far better for us to live life on our own terms and ignore the opinions of others. Happiness should never be outsourced. 4. Stay focused when confronted with distractions. If a person doesn't know to which port they sail, no wind is favorable. Modern-day capitalism has given us an abundance of options. Whether it's food, travel, or entertainment, we have far more to work with than our predecessors did. Yet, this hasn't clearly benefited us. When presented with so many options, we become paralyzed by indecision. This is known as the paradox of choice. Our brains haven't been able to keep up with modern-day advances and are overwhelmed when presented with so much information. Because it's so difficult to make a choice, the default choice is to maintain the status quo. It's one of the core problems we face in our daily lives. With so many options, we never really commit to a path. We either put off making a decision or pursue multiple activities all at once. The result is we never really make headway into anything at all. The Stoics emphasize the need for purposeful action. We must take care not to be merely reacting to our circumstances, but to live intentionally. 5. Toss away ego and vanity. Throw out your conceited opinions, for it is impossible for a person to begin to learn what he thinks he already knows. One of Epictetus' biggest frustrations as a teacher was how his students claimed that they wanted to be taught, but secretly believed that they knew everything. It's a pain all teachers know, and most of us would recognize. At the heart of it is ego and arrogance. The thought is that we've learned enough and are better than our contemporaries. Nowhere is such thinking more dangerous than today. The information of today is not only insufficient for solving the problems of tomorrow, but can very well be the obstacle for sharper thinking as well. We are in an age where we're merely one step away from being disrupted in virtually every industry. Even in ancient times, Marcus Aurelius has remarked, "The universe is change, life is an opinion." This is why the most brilliant minds of today spend a good portion of their time reading. They understand there is always wisdom to be gleaned, whether from the past, present, or future. We would be wise to do the same. And all